For decades, the United States was seen as the indispensable breadbasket of the Middle East. Wheat from Kansas, Oklahoma, and North Dakota filled warehouses from Riyadh to Cairo, providing millions of people with their daily bread. But suddenly, American silos are staying full, harvesters are sitting idle, and contracts that were once considered secure are vanishing almost overnight. At the same time, more and more shipments from Saskatchewan and Manitoba are arriving in Middle Eastern ports. The containers no longer say Made in USA, but rather product of Canada. Canada didn't conquer this market with big announcements. It was simply on time, reliable, and ready to offer its partners better terms. While American farmers are desperately searching for buyers, Canada is securing contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But why are even long-standing allies turning away from the U.S.? Which four countries are driving this historic shift? And could America's loss in the Middle East be just the beginning of a much larger global shift? The answer begins in Saudi Arabia, a country that trusted American wheat for decades and has now suddenly made a different choice. Want Saudi Arabia. The first major ally turns away. For more than 2 decades, Saudi Arabia was one of the most reliable buyers of American wheat. In Riyadh and Jeddah, bread was baked using durum wheat from Kansas, while Saudi importers preferred grain from the U.S. because of its quality, price, and dependable delivery. For many farmers in the Midwest, this market seemed almost unshakable. But in 2025, the picture changed. Saudi Arabia imported around 3,569 million tons of wheat, about 14% less than the previous year. Even more crucial, however, was that the U.S. was no longer the primary supplier. Instead, Canada signed new contracts and increasingly delivered wheat and barley from Saskatchewan and Manitoba. In the first quarter of 2025 alone, according to the original report, Canada secured orders worth more than $420 million, many of which had previously gone to American providers. The reason isn't just price. Saudi traders explain that Canada offers them more security. Deliveries arrive on time, quality remains consistent, and political risks play a smaller role. While Canadian grain goes directly into national reserves, more and more silos in Kansas, Oklahoma, and North Dakota remain full. For American farmers, this is a heavy blow. Wheat prices are falling, while fertilizer, machinery, fuel, and labor are becoming more expensive. Some operations are reducing their acreage, while others are leaving fields fallow because every new planting could mean further losses. Repair shops, gas stations, transport companies, and small cooperatives are also feeling the pressure. Saudi Arabia didn't loudly turn its back on the U.S. It simply stopped ordering. And it is precisely this silence that makes the change so dangerous. Because if even a long-term partner no longer trusts American wheat, only one question remains. Who will follow next? 2. Egypt. When bread becomes more important than political loyalty. In Egypt, bread is far more than just food. Nearly 70 million people rely on state-subsidized food. Even a small increase in the price of flour can strain families and increase pressure on the government. That is why Cairo needs one thing above all else: affordable wheat delivered on time. In the past, American grain was seen as a safe choice. But in 2025, the Egyptian harvest was significantly lower than planned, at around 3.9 million tons. At the same time, the country lacked U.S. dollars to pay for new deliveries regularly. While American exporters stuck to high logistics costs and rigid payment terms, France, Russia, and Canada offered more flexible solutions. Canada convinced them with stable prices, reliable deliveries, and fewer political strings attached. For American farmers, this means the loss of a vital market. Ships from Louisiana are heading to Alexandria less often, orders are disappearing, and silos in Kansas or North Dakota remain full. Some farmers are even forgoing the harvest because transport and storage cost more than the sale would bring in. The people in Cairo don't ask whether their bread comes from America or Canada. They just want to know if there is enough for their families. And when Egypt has to choose between political loyalty and affordable bread, the decision was made long ago. 3. The United Arab Emirates. America's wheat vanishes silently. In the United Arab Emirates, even one delayed delivery can be enough to lose a major market. More than 11 million residents, millions of tourists, and countless hotels and restaurants need reliable flour supplies every day. But it is precisely here that American wheat hardly plays a role anymore. For the 2025 to 2026 season, the Emirates are expected to import around 1.98 million tons of wheat. While Russia, Europe, Australia, and Canada are expanding their deliveries, only small amounts are coming from the U.S. The Emirates aren't openly rejecting America. For many importers, American grain is simply too expensive, the transport route too long, and the delivery too uncertain. Canada, on the other hand, offers consistent quality, predictable delivery times, and flexible terms. For companies in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, it no longer matters which name is on the container. What matters is whether the goods arrive on time, the price is right, and no additional political risks arise. But the Emirates don't want to remain dependent on imports forever. They are investing in drought-tolerant seeds, agricultural technology, and international production chains. Their goal is to have greater control over the food supply of the future. For American farmers, this shift is particularly painful. The Emirates were long considered a gateway to other markets in the Middle East. Today, this gate is closing without an argument and without an official explanation. The orders are simply missing. America is not losing this market through a sudden decision, but through a slow silence. And while Canada takes over larger and larger parts of the supply chain, Qatar is already taking the next step. The country doesn't just want a new supplier, it wants to control the entire food chain. 4. Qatar. The buyer who wants to take over the entire food chain. Qatar is no longer waiting for foreign suppliers to deliver at the crucial moment. After the supply chain crises and the sharp jumps in food prices, the small Gulf state realized how dangerous complete dependency can be. That is why Qatar isn't just buying wheat today, it is investing in farmland, seeds, warehouses, ports, and transport routes across multiple continents. The state-owned agricultural group Hassad Food has invested hundreds of millions of dollars in Australian farms, European research centers, and logistics projects in Africa. The goal is long-term control. Qatar wants to determine for itself where its grain is grown, stored, and shipped. Canada fits perfectly into this strategy, not because Canadian wheat is always the cheapest, but because Canada is ready to cooperate comprehensively. Alberta and Saskatchewan offer stable harvests, modern seed research, secure purchase agreements, and flexible financing. According to the original report, investment agreements worth around $180 million were signed in 2025. These aren't just about individual deliveries, but about new varieties, better storage capacities, and long-term logistics systems. For Canadian farmers, this model means planning security over several years. For American farmers, however, it is a warning sign. In the past, Qatar had to buy American wheat. Today, the country is building a network in which the U.S. is hardly needed anymore. There is still grain in American silos, but buyers have long been investing elsewhere. This is the crucial shift. America is not just losing customers, but also its role in the system. When a buyer becomes an investor, producer, and owner of the supply chain themselves, it's no longer enough to just offer more wheat. Qatar is thus showing where the global food market is headed. Countries no longer just want to buy, they want control. And while Canada offers them exactly this kind of partnership, America is left with a troubling question. What happens when the world one day doesn't need American wheat at all? 4 countries are making different decisions, but the result is the same. Saudi Arabia is looking for security, Egypt needs affordable wheat, the Emirates want faster deliveries, and Qatar is investing directly in the entire supply chain. Canada doesn't convince with big words, but with stable quality, on-time deliveries, and flexible contracts. As a result, it is step by step taking over markets that America long considered secure. Meanwhile, American silos remain full, production costs are rising, and more farmers don't know who will buy their next harvest. However, the greatest loss isn't just money, but trust. Can American agriculture still change in time? Or is a new global food order beginning in which Canada takes the lead? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any further developments.